Squares, cubes, and roots is what we're going to look at in this video. It's split into 7 parts. We're going to start off by looking at square numbers, then square root, and then cube numbers, and then cube root, and then looking at decimals inside a square root, and then how do you find the values of something like this, and then negative cube roots. So at the way my video work, I'm going to do the example on the left, which is I do. You are then going to press pause and have a go at the example on the right, which is you do. And at the bottom of the slide, you can see the type of example it is. So we have a number here, which is 4 to the power of 2. This is also called 4 squared. And all it's saying is multiply 4 by itself. So we have 4 times 4. And the answer here is 16. So again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had to go at the example on the right. So this is just going to be 3 times 3, which is 9. And this is called a square number. Okay, that is a square number. So moving on. Now this is called a square root symbol. This is the opposite of what we just did. So this is saying, what number do I multiply by itself to give me 16? So the answer here is 4, because 4 times 4 is 16. And again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had to go at this. So what number do you multiply by itself to give you 36? Well, the answer there is 6. So here's some examples for you to have a go at. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers. So we are now looking at 2 to the power of 3. This is also called 2 cubed. And now it's just saying, well, multiply 2 by itself 3 times. And that gives me 8. And on the right, we are just going to multiply 3 by itself 3 times. So 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. And again, this is just the reverse. So this is saying, well, notice now there's a little 3 there. It's saying, what number do I multiply by itself 3 times to give me 125? And the answer is 5, because if you did 5 times 5 times 5, you'd get 125. And again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had to go at the example on the right. So in this case, the answer is 4. 4 times 4 is 16, and then 16 times 4 gives you 64. So here's some practice questions for you to have a go at. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers. Moving on, we are now looking at square roots with decimal numbers. Now this looks familiar to square root of 36, which is 6. Okay, but this time we have 0.36. So we can see the decimal has hopped twice. So the answer here is going to be 0.6 times 0.6, because the decimal has hopped once, twice altogether. So the final answer is 0.6. Okay, again, if you look at the one on the right, it looks familiar to this square number. So you know the square root of 121 is 11. So you know the answer is going to be either 0.11. Well, is it 0.11? Let's see. How many times did we hop the decimal? 1, 2. How many times have we hopped the decimal here? 1, 2, 3, 4. So this isn't quite right, because the answer to this question will become, well, you'll have the 121, and it'll look something like this. Okay, and that's not quite right, because if you look at the question, the decimal is 1.21. So the answer here is going to be 1.1 times 1.1, because the decimal has hopped twice. Look, the decimal here hopped twice. The decimal here has hopped twice in total. So the answer to this question is 1.1, and this then becomes 1.21. Okay, so you have to count the number of times the decimal's hopped. So here's some practice questions you need to have a go at. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers. Mark your work. Now, the question here is slightly different. It's saying find the values. Notice the S, the values of X. So you must look at this and you might say, well, actually, surely the answer is 5. And that's not wrong. That is right. 5 squared gives us 25. But the answer is also minus 5, because if you multiply 2 negatives together, you get a positive. Okay, so this has 2 possible answers. And in fact, the square root, when someone says, what's the square root of, let's just say 36, the answer is plus 6 or minus 6. Okay, you can have 2 possible answers, a plus and a minus, because it gives you the same value. So again, here, the answer is 3 or minus 3. And moving on, so we have a cube root, which is negative. So, well, if you think back to, well, what is the cube root of 125? So that's going to be 5. This time we have a negative in there, so the answer is negative 5. Now, the reason it's negative 5 is because if you did negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5, if you times these two together, you end up with a positive 25, because 2 negatives make a positive. And then you're left with, well, this times this. Well, what's 25 times minus 5? Well, I'll give you a negative answer of 125. Okay, so again, if you look at the one on the right, well, what 3 numbers do I multiply to give me 8? That's 2, but the answer is going to be minus 2, okay, because it's a minus 8. So here's some practice questions you need to have a go at. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers. Mark your work. Now, if you would like a full worksheet on this, I'll link it down in the comments below. And if you did find this video useful, I've got loads of other content like this over on my channel. Do check it out.